Hello children, a big loving welcome to our very own channel, Ammu&You, where I am Ammu and I am here to narrate a lovely story to all of you. Today the story that I have for you is a beautiful story written by the famous author Ruskin Bond, and the name is The Cherry Tree. One day, when Rakesh was 6, he walked home from Mussoorie Bazaar eating cherries. They were a little sweet, a little sour, small, bright red cherries that had come all the way from the Kashmir Valley. How many of you love to eat cherries, children? I love them. Rakesh lived with his grandfather on the outskirts of the town, just where the forest began. His father and mother lived in a small village 50 miles away. Here they grew maize and rice and barley in narrow terraced fields on the village, which was on the lower slopes of the mountain. But there were no schools, so soon Rakesh was old enough to go to a school. His parents had to send him to stay with his grandfather in the small town of Mussoorie. Rakesh was on his way home from school when he bought the cherries, and by the time he reached the cottage, there were only 3 left. "Will you have a cherry, Dada?" he asked as soon as he saw his grandfather in the garden. Grandfather took one cherry and Rakesh promptly ate the other 2. How smart! "Are cherry seeds lucky, Dada?" asked Rakesh. "Of course. Then I'll keep it," said Rakesh. "Nothing is lucky if you put it away. If you want luck, you must put the seed to work." "How can I make a seed work, Dada?" "Plant it." So Rakesh went to a corner of a garden where the earth was soft and he did not have to dig too much. He pressed the seed into the soil with his thumb and it went right in. Then he had his lunch and ran off to play cricket with his friends and forgot all about the cherry tree and the seed. It was then mid-August when the monsoon rains are at their heaviest and plants spring up almost everywhere, from cracks in the walls of houses, from blocked rain pipes, and sometimes from the trunks of trees. And seeds and seedlings need no looking after. And that time it was really such a green world all around. When it was winter in the Himalayas, a cold wind blew down the snows and wailed in the deodar trees. Deodar trees are such tall trees, children. In the evenings, grandfather and Rakesh sat over a charcoal fire and grandfather told Rakesh stories. Stories about people who turned into animals and ghosts who lived in trees and beans that jumped and stones that wept. And in turn, Rakesh would read him the newspaper because grandfather did not know how to read. One morning in the garden, he bent to pick up what he thought was a small twig and found to his surprise that it was well rooted. He stared at it for a moment, then ran to fetch grandfather, calling, "Dada, come and look, the cherry tree has come up." "What cherry tree?" asked grandfather, who had forgotten all about it. "The seed we planted last year, Dada. Look, it's come up." "Yes, it's a cherry tree, all right," said grandfather. "You must water it now and then." Rakesh watered it and circled it with pebbles. "What are the pebbles for?" asked grandfather. "For privacy," replied Rakesh. "This is the land for the cherry tree to grow. He looked at the tree every morning, but it did not seem to be growing very fast. So he stopped looking at it, except quickly out of the corner of his eye. And after a week or two, when he allowed himself to look at it properly, he found that it had grown at least an inch. That's what he thought. When the tree was about 2 feet high, a goat entered the garden and ate all the young leaves. Rakesh spotted the goat as he was coming down the path. He chased it out of the garden and all the way down the hill until it leapt across a small ravine. But when he returned to the garden, out of breath, he was really angry. He found that only the cherry tree's main stem and 2 thin branches remained. Never mind, consoled grandfather, seeing that Rakesh was very upset. It will grow again. Cherry trees are tough. Towards the end of the rainy season, new leaves appeared on the tree, and soon they saw a woman cutting grass who came scrambling down the hillside, her scythe swishing through everything that came in the way. One sweep and the newly grown leaves on the cherry tree. The cherry tree was cut in two. Grandfather saw what had happened. He went up to the woman and scolded her. "Who has asked you to cut our tree?" The woman went away muttering something about the old man being crazy. Grandfather bent over the cherry tree and examined it closely. It looked as though the damage could not be repaired. "Maybe it will die now," said Rakesh, looking downcast. "Maybe," agreed grandfather. By the time summer came round again, it had sent out several new shoots with tender green leaves. The cherry tree. Rakesh had grown taller too. He was 8 now, a sturdy boy with curly black hair and deep black eyes. Blackberry eyes, grandfather called them. They were like the wild blackberries growing all along the hillside. The berries ripened in July. Rakesh collected a bagful of them, and grandfather made blackberry jam, 3 jars of them, which lasted through the summer. Even when there was plenty of rain, Rakesh would sometimes water the tree. He wanted it to know that he was there. What a sweet thought. One day, he found a bright green praying mantis perched on a branch, peering at him with bulging eyes. Rakesh looked at it, eye to eye. It was cherry tree's first visitor. It would not harm the tree. On the contrary, it was soon busy snapping up all the leaf-cutting insects that came its way because it fed on leaves. Next day, there was another visitor, a hairy caterpillar who started making a meal of several leaves. Rakesh removed it quickly and dropped it over the wall. He had learnt at school about ugly caterpillars turning into beautiful butterflies, so he didn't want to kill it, nor did he want it eating up all his leaves. He watched the caterpillar crawl away and he said, "Come back when you're a butterfly. I will let you sit on the flowers of my tree." Rakesh was 9 and the tree was 4, but almost as tall as Rakesh. They had a tea party in the garden. Grandfather was good at tea parties. Rakesh's friends came and ate up everything there was to eat. They sang, danced around the cherry tree and played hide and seek on the hillside until it grew dark. What fun they had. One morning when the sun came out, grandfather came into the garden too. let some warmth into my bones," as he put it. He stopped in front of cherry tree, stared at it for a few seconds, and then called out, "Rakesh, come, come, look quickly before it falls." Rakesh dashed outside, wondering if the house was falling down. He found grandfather staring at the tree as if it had performed a miracle. There was a pale pink blossom at the end of a branch, the first blossom of the cherry tree. Bees came to feed on the nectar. Tiny birds pecked at the blossoms and broke them off. But the tree kept flowering right through the spring, and there were always more blossoms than birds. That's the beauty of nature. That summer, there were small cherries on the tree. Rakesh tasted one and spat it out. It was very sour. "They'll be better next year, you see," grandfather consoled him again. But the birds liked them. Yellow-bottomed bulbuls and scarlet minivets flitted in and out of the foliage, feasting on the sour cherries. How much they loved them. One afternoon, grandfather had gone indoors. Rakesh came into the garden, and he lay down on the grass beneath the cherry tree. He gazed up through the leaves at the great blue, vast sky. He was still lying beneath the tree when the evening shadows crept across the garden. Rakesh was lying there when grandfather came back and sat down beside Rakesh. They waited in silence until the stars came out and the night jar began to call. In the forest below, the crickets and cicadas began shrilling and squeaking like an orchestra tuning up. They all started playing together, and the trees were filled with the sounds of insects. "So many trees in the forest, Dada," mused Rakesh. "Why do I like this one so much?" "You planted it yourself, child, and that's why it's so special." Lovely story, isn't it? Children, I'm sure you've loved it. So please like, share, subscribe, press the bell icon to get all the updates on the channel, and write to me your comments on the story. Stay good. Wait for me till I come back again soon with another beautiful story to narrate to you. Till then, thank you for listening to the story, and bye-bye.